With the launch of the Planet Zoo Arid Pack, we have 8 brand new animals to enjoy, but how do these new additions fare in gameplay? That's what I'm going to figure out. In this video, I'll be ranking each new animal based on a number of factors, including appeal rating, breeding and longevity, upkeep costs, and versatility. Let's find out which one of these contenders brings the best value. First up, I'm looking at appeal. Appeal shows how popular an animal will be for guests, which can affect the number of visitors in your zoo and guest happiness. Appeal varies per animal, but there's typically a predetermined upper and lower limit for each species. I've looked at a sample of all the new animals, and ranges for appeal are as follows. A bit of a surprise for me considering it's a relatively well-known animal, the Dromedary Camel is the least appealing animal in the new pack. Appeal range for the camel that I've seen so far is only 700 to 800 per camel, significantly less than the 3,000 or so appeal of the Bactrian camels, so definitely on the lower end of the appeal scale for all animals in Planet Zoo in its entirety. That being said, the Dromedary Camel comes in a lot cheaper than the Bactrian camel. Bactrian's about 3,000 cash compared to the Dromedary being about 300-ish. Next least appealing is the Dama Gazelle. Damas have an appeal of around 1100 to 1300, which is kind of similar to the appeal of the Thompson's Gazelle that came with the deluxe version of the game. I'd say if you already own the Thompson's Gazelle with that deluxe version, then there's no advantage breeding either species really. Next is a tie, with both the Sandcat and the Addax seeing appeal of around 1500 to 1800. It's hard to compare the Sandcat with other animals already in the game since they're very unique, but I went with what I figured would be a reasonable comparison, the Eurasian lynx, since they're both smallish cats. The lynx is more than double the appeal of the Sandcat, coming in at 3,500 to 3,800 points. The Addax, when you compare them to the other antelope in the game, they're faring a lot better. Both the sable and the pronghorn antelope are about 1,200 appeal each. Next for appeal is the Somali wild ass, with an appeal of 1,900 to 2,200. Comparing this with the other equestrian animals, zebra fare worse at around 1,200 and Przewalski's horse around 1,600. So the wild ass is coming out on top for these types of animals. Getting up to the top animals for appeal, in second place we have another tie, with both the African Crested Porcupine and a Desert Horned Viper both seeing an appeal of around 2,300 to 2,500. For a comparison, so for the porcupine, I had to look it up because I wasn't entirely sure what the porcupine was. Turns out it's a kind of rodent, and the other weird animal that turns out is a kind of rodent is the capybara. Capybara sees an appeal of around 2,000, so porcupine wins out. For the horned viper, I couldn't see much of a difference in appeal between them and the other snakes in the game, so that's pretty average for them. Topping out the ranking for highest appeal is the black rhino, with an appeal ranging from 4,200 to 5,000 points. Compared to the other rhinos in the game, that's a very similar range to both the Indian rhino and the southern white rhino. So no significant difference with the other rhinos, but black rhino ranking best in appeal of all the new animals introduced in the Arid Animal Pack. For the next ranking, I'm going to look at mating, birth rate and longevity. This gives a good overall indication of the turnover of a species and the micromanagement needed to maintain a population. The most difficult new animal for breeding is the black rhino. You can keep 1 male and 2 females in a social group and the male will mate with both of them. The difficulty here is it takes 7 years for the rhinos to mature, and they will only ever produce 1 offspring per pregnancy. Gestation takes 15 months, so over a year from pregnancy to birth. And to top it all off, after a pregnancy they won't mate again for another 2.5 years. Life expectancy for the black rhino is about 40 years though, so you won't need to think about replacing your rhinos for a long time. Overall though, breeding is more difficult for the black rhinos than it is for the other animals in the Arid Pack. In 7th place, I'm putting the sandcats as a problematic species for breeding and longevity. For sandcats, there's only 1 breeding pair allowed in the right social group, so not a lot of potential for population growth. To be fair, they do mature at 1 year old, which is quite early, but their breeding window is only 9 years before they're infertile at 10 years old. Sandcats can live about 16 years, so that's a really long time with no breeding, taking account of their longevity, in my opinion. They will produce 2 to 4 offspring per pregnancy, so that's a positive, but given the turnover in terms of aging, the cats aren't super efficient animals for growth in this pack. Next up is the African Crested Porcupine. You can keep up to 6 porcupines in a social group, but only the dominant breeding pair will mate at any given point. So essentially the rest are there to look good, but won't be producing offspring. The porcupines live around 15 years and can breed right up to death. They mature at 1.5 years and produce up to 4 offspring per pregnancy. So although only one pair will be breeding, there's a good chance for multiple offspring if the fertility stats are good. The next ranking was a difficult choice between 2 species. In the end, in 5th place, I went with the Somali wild ass because of a few key features. Now, the wild ass is a bit of an odd one. You can have 7 of them in a social group, but only 5 females. Only the dominant male will breed, so essentially if you've got it full of asses, then there's going to be 1 male donkey in there that's not doing anything. And the asses will only ever have 1 offspring per pregnancy. On the plus side, they mature relatively quickly at 2 years, and they will breed until death at around 33 years, so plenty of breeding opportunity at least. 4th place is the Dromedary Camel, and like I said, I had a hard time deciding whether they're better or worse for breeding than the wild ass. What swung it for me, the Dromedary Camels are led by an alpha male who will mate with all the females in the group. You can keep up to 13 camels in a social group, but only 1 alpha male, so potential for many camels being pregnant at the same time is quite high. They live for around 45 years, but mature at 5 years, so very long time spent growing up for the camels there. They also become infertile at 35 years, so that's at least a whopping 10 years of not being able to breed. So now we're getting into the better animals in terms of breeding and population growth. In 3rd place is the Dama Gazelle. There's up to 20 in a social group led by an alpha male, and they will mate with all of the females, so potential for population getting out of hand is fairly likely. They do only produce 1 offspring per pregnancy, hence why they're not in a higher position. Life expectancy is about 15 years, so about average, and they will breed right up to death. In 2nd place is the Addax. You can keep up to 25 animals in a habitat and still maintain a social balance. Like the Dama, there'll be 1 alpha male that will mate with all the females, so very big potential for lots of pregnancies there. Life expectancy for these is 22 years, maturity at 3, and the Addax will reproduce right up to death. In terms of births per pregnancy, the Addax can have 1 or 2 offspring, so puts them ahead of the Dama in that regard. So number 1 spot for longevity in breeding. Now, might be a bit contention with this one, but I'm giving this to the desert horned viper. To be fair, this isn't really to do with the viper's stats. It's more that most exhibit species are pretty easy to maintain since inbreeding for them isn't a thing. For most exhibit species, once you set up with them, you turn on population management and that's it. Very rarely need to replace any of them, so in terms of maintaining population, it's too easy to breed and maintain them to not put them at the top spot here. Right, next ranking is for the cost of upkeep. To make this a fair test, I'm judging based on maximum capacity for each enclosure, so the animals you can keep in 1 habitat with the average number of offspring in there too. This is also based on the lowest grade food quality because there is some variance the higher up the food quality you go. In last place for this ranking, the most expensive animal to feed is the black rhino. I've got a habitat here with 4 animals currently, 3 adults and 1 baby, and that's costing 780 cash per feed. Considering that's only for 4 animals, that tops out at 195 each. Next most expensive is the Dromedary Camel. I've got 15 camels in here and cost per feed is a staggering 2,701 cash. That's 180 each, so still quite a lot. Not as much as the black rhino, but I mean, this is a camel, that's a lot for a camel. Next is the African Crested Porcupine. There's 7 in my habitat here, and that's costing 939 per feed, so 134 each. In 5th place is the Addax. Now, this is a hefty enclosure. It's got 31 animals in there, but it's costing me 2,655 per feed, so around 85 for each animal. In 4th place is the Sandcat, and this one is the one I can relate to most because if you look at the Sandcat, it looks like a normal cat. It's normal cat sized. It likely eats about the same amount as a normal cat does. Well, for 2 cats, it's costing 162 cash per feed. I don't know what the conversion is from Planet Zoo money to real money, but that seems like a lot. Okay, so if we did look at it in Planet Zoo terms, now I could probably purchase one of the smaller animals. So, I don't know, maybe a prairie dog. I could probably purchase a prairie dog for less than it costs to feed the cats for one meal. That's ridiculous. Are they like shipping meat in, especially from the Sahara Desert or something, to feed them proper diet? I don't know. But hey ho, that's what it is. It works out at about £81 each. Third place is the Somali wild ass, and that's 586 per feed, but with 9 animals in the habitat, that's about 65 each. Coming in second place, but potentially first if you're only counting habitat species, is the Dama Gazelle. The Damas are exceedingly good value when it comes to feeding. I've got 27 animals in my Dama habitat and they're costing just 472 per feed. That's for all of them. So that's just 17 cash each. If you take in count, that is 5 times less expensive than it is to feed the Addax, which is a similar animal, so just seems real crazy to me. In terms of food costs, first place by default goes to the desert horned viper because food costs aren't a thing for exhibit species. To maintain the vipers, it won't cost you anything other than staff wages and the power cost to keep the viper. So a bit of a mixed bag in terms of upkeep costs there. Granted, I'm not accounting for staff time and whatnot. Next ranking, I'm taking a look at habitat versatility. So taking account of things like the habitat size, the animal's relationship with the guests, and interspecies enrichment. Number 8 in this list, now complete reversal on some of the other ones. I'm going to put the horned viper at the bottom for this because there's so little engagement with the small exhibit boxes once you've put them down. There really isn't much interaction and versatility with them once they're there. At least with the large exhibit boxes, they function like a walkthrough habitat, but with the small ones, there's just not much going on for them. Second to last is the black rhino. Reason being is the habitat is absolutely huge for the number of animals you can house, so it will be taking up a lot of real estate in your zoo. The rhinos also don't get any interspecies enrichment, so must be housed alone. That's a lot of space for so few animals. The only point in the rhino's favour in this category is that they're confident with humans, so no need to worry about animal stress. Up next is the sandcat. It's not that I dislike the sandcats. In fact, I think I had the most fun building this sandcat habitat for the Arid Pack animals. But taking all factors into consideration for versatility, the only thing in their favour is the small footprint. They don't need a lot of space. Going against them is the fact that they're shy animals, which when combined with a small footprint means you have to be extra vigilant to make sure they're not stressed by noise or seeing guests. It's bad enough when you're dealing with a shy animal in a larger enclosure, but as soon as you put them in a small space too, it becomes unmanageable at times. The sandcats also must be housed alone, so no interspecies enrichment. In 5th place is the Somali wild ass. We're now into neutral territory in terms of versatility, so whilst the wild ass isn't bad, it's just not as versatile as some of the other animals in the pack. First off, they need a lot of space. This is a big enclosure when you consider there's only 9 asses in here. A positive for the wild ass is that it's a confident species, so no need to worry about noise or coverings. The donkeys are unlikely to get stressed. The wild ass also benefits from interspecies enrichment with 3 other animals, so that's a positive in its favour there. Next place goes to the Dama Gazelle. The Damas, having such a big social group, needs a lot of space. They're also shy animals, which means messing about with one-way glass and stuff, which is a pain at times, and it does look a bit odd when coupled with a big enclosure. Benefits for the Dama, you can make this into a walkthrough enclosure if you want, although that definitely comes with problems on its own. Having a shy animal that's allowed to be a walkthrough enclosure just sounds like a disaster to me. But the fact that we can even try that, it has to go down as a point for versatility there, doesn't it? Another benefit for the Dama is they get interspecies bonus with 3 other animals, which is a huge plus for versatility. In 3rd place is the Addax. Like the Dama, they need a lot of space. They're also a shy animal, so that is bothersome to manage. But unlike the Dama, you can't make the Addax habitat into a walkthrough habitat. Now, the reason I've put these in third place is because the Addax beats the Dama in this category because they get interspecies bonus with 4 other animals. So that bumps them up in overall versatility for this one. In second place, I've got the African Crested Porcupine for versatility. They don't need a lot of space for their enclosure, which is an automatic bonus. On top of that, they're confident with humans, which is also excellent versatility. And to top it off, you can make this one into a walkthrough enclosure as well. Now, that is a fantastic combination for making a great walkthrough habitat. Small space, confident species, and can walk through it. Excellent. Can't ask for better, to be honest with that one. However, first place in this category goes to the Dromedary Camel. They do need a fair bit of space, but there's lots of animals in this habitat, and they are big animals, so it's kind of reasonable in my opinion. The camels are a confident creature, so great for getting creative with the habitat without worry of stress being a factor. The last positive point that pushes this in the Dromedary Camel's favour is the interspecies enrichment. They get a bonus from 5 different animals, making this a very versatile addition to work with. So that is all the categories I've ranked the new Arid Pack animals against, adding up all the scores, and our ranking overall sits as follows. First place, surprisingly, goes to the Desert Horned Viper, with the ease of the exhibit species pushing it above all else in a lot of categories I've ranked for. Maybe not a true winner because in some of the categories the other animals couldn't even compete against the Viper, they just had the advantage of being an exhibit species. Hey ho, I wanted to approach this from a genuine standpoint and put all the animals in, not exclude it just because it was an exhibit species. Second place goes to the Addax with the good appeal and mating capabilities and no big downsides in the other categories. A close third, just 1 point behind, is the Dama Gazelle. The price per feed ranking certainly stood in its favour, but the appeal rating for the Dama wasn't quite there and dragged them down. We have a tie in 4th and 5th place with the Somali wild ass and the African Crested Porcupine. There just wasn't anything strongly positive or negative enough for the wild ass to rank them higher or lower, and the porcupine, they cancelled out the great ranking in versatility with a poor ranking for their breeding capability. In 6th place is the Dromedary Camel. Their top ranking in the versatility saved them from weaker scores in other areas and dropping further down the ranks. In 7th place is the Sandcat. I think this is a lovely addition to the game. It's a fun animal to include, but poor breeding, expensive upkeep, and the shyness, they're difficult aspects to manage in terms of gameplay, so yeah, comes in 7th. Last but not least, coming in 8th place, the Black Rhino. It's undeniably a beautiful animal, and I've absolutely nothing against the rhino, but its difficulty to breed, cost of upkeep, and that huge enclosure that it needs, that's a lot of room. Quite a difficult animal to work with, so why it's in last place. Regardless what the rankings say, I'm certainly going to enjoy putting all of these new fantastic animals in my zoo. I hope this breakdown's given you a few ideas of what to do with them too. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.